This is a part of history that should not be forgotten. Welcome to Unforgotten, where we spotlight African stories that were erased, overlooked, or rarely told. Today we speak on the Aba Women's War of 1929, when tens of thousands of Nigerian women rose up against colonial rule. This is their story. It began in southern eastern Nigeria, where by 1929, British colonial rule had been in place for nearly 30 years. Colonial administrators had introduced new taxations and put power in the hands of warrant chiefs, men who imposed taxes on citizens and often abused their authority. At first, taxation fell only on men. But towards the end of that same year, colonial officers moved to extend taxation on women as well. Women's trade at that time and production were already suffering from hyperinflation and failing prices, so the addition of taxation on top of all of this was seen as a direct threat. However, there was one woman who refused to accept this injustice, and her name was Madam Nwanyi. On the 18th of November 1929, a census official arrived at her home, demanded to count her livestock as part of the new taxation measures, but she refused, and that confrontation quickly turned physical. Enraged by this, Nwanyi ran to the market square to tell the women what had happened. Her story ignited their anger, and together they confronted the local chief, Okugo. They used a traditional method called sitting on a man, surrounding his compound, chanting war songs, dancing and mocking his failures until he was stripped of his authority and put on trial. But that was only the beginning. Within weeks, protests surged across the region, drawing in thousands of women who demanded justice and rejected colonial authority. Alarmed by the scale of the resistance, colonial forces opened fire on unarmed women as they demonstrated in towns across the region. The violence was severe, but the women refused to back down. The Aba Women's War forced reforms. Some warrant chiefs were removed, women gained greater political recognition, and their resistance inspired later movements against taxation. More importantly, though, it showed that women's voices, market women, mothers, widows, could reshape history, becoming one of the first major anti-colonial revolts in Nigeria's history. The Aba Women's War reminds us that resistance doesn't always come from soldiers or politicians, but sometimes from market women armed with song, courage, and unity. This is Unforgotten, preserving African culture and heritage one story at a time. Make sure you follow us for more at All Things Africa.